Afternoon. So just try to keep up my compliments of having you have 3 minutes to have a little quick conversation, trying to stay engaged, trying to keep my connection with my following in the YouTube channel, right? Which I really appreciate. If you haven't done so, give me a subscribe to the channel, right? It's about luxury real estate, and we talk about different, uh, about real estate, what's going on in Miami. I'm based out of Miami. So today I wanted to go over uh, the question some people ask a lot is, can you finance a condominium pre-construction? So, like guys know, Miami's booming with the pre-construction. Just to put you in the right setting, we had the perfect storm in the sense of that we had a tragedy when Surfside collapsed that created a whole new to really look what was happening, and that created a whole new set of rules, building codes to better, inspection periods to be shorter. Basically, a couple of things, a lot of things to protect us or be to we could live in safety, be for our safety. So that created that right there was one of the elements that started the perfect storm. Then I guess we had COVID, and then we had people moving to the state of Florida. We have about 1,000 people moving to the state of Florida a day. And the other thing is the Miami is built out. We can't build into the water because we got a park. Biscayne Park is the water. So otherwise, so now we'll be doing little islands like, Brickell Key, and we'll be expanding into the water. And then we also have, you go to Chrome and you got the Everglades. So Miami is built out. So now the three components are new building codes, right? Which makes a lot of the older buildings very hard for them to get up to code and actually pass all these new structural hurdles that they have to go. So sometimes it's going to be a lot cheaper, or it is better to actually knock it down and for that building to be replaced. Also, when they do that, the other element is now we have a lot of population, so we have a housing shortage in Miami. I know people keep saying, we have a lot of inventory coming onto the market, but it's unsellable inventory. It's inventory that is nobody wants. It's inventory that's over 30 years old. You buying into something that you don't know. It's like buying an old car. Might look good outside, but you don't know what's under the hood. The other thing is a lot of financing for these older units is also becoming very, very hard, right? So sometimes it's better to knock the building down, and then since we have no more space, the city maybe where you before had a 40-story building, now you could build a 80-story, 60-story building, and basically it's the numbers are there, and it makes a lot of sense for developers to buy these older buildings, knock them down, and create something new with better building codes, more safety. Because let's also be realistic, we have advanced. The way we're building today is completely different than the way we were building 10, 15, 20 years ago. Especially here, Florida's done a great job. Miami-Dade, we have one of the strictest building codes, right? We go through hurricanes, reality, right? Hurricanes come. We're about to start hurricane season. So, we have impact windows. So we are actually building a lot better and stronger. But let me get to the main question. And so all this pre-construction that we have out there, that's basically what's most of the inventory that's coming on the market, and that's what we want to buy. So, pre-construction has different stages, right? So you could buy, and the pre-construction might take, anywhere from 5 years. Depends the size of the building, depends what stage you're buying into the building. But it's, if you buy from the beginning to the end. So first of all, the reality is that all purchases, all pre-construction contracts, and let me make a big difference here. There's a big difference between housing, like houses from Lennar, et cetera, your houses, communities, right? Those have different rules than actual a tower or condominium, building. They have two different worlds, right? So in a condominium, we're going to talk about the condominiums, the towers that's going up because people aren't, basically, we're not building houses anymore. We're going vertical, we're going up. Basically, all those contracts are cash contracts, meaning that you are signing a contract that is cash. It means that you're obligated to buy that in cash. Now you are going to, a lot of when you're in the sales centers, they're going to tell you, listen, yes, the builder will allow you, or well, you will have the chance to look for financing, right? That is true. You have your bank, your line of credit, or you could do, and then you could finance, because basically the way it's set up, usually you're going to give 10% of reservations, another 10% of contract, that puts you at 20, then another 10% at groundbreaking, then another 10% at top off, that puts you 40%, and you should be able to finance, or at the day of closing, you have to come up with a 60% of the difference, right? So a lot of people, it just says to them, it's common sense. If you already gave 40% down, who's not going to finance you for the rest of the difference of the price? So this is a little where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Like we know there are conventional loans and there are non-conventional loans, and there's a different whole world for the lending. The good answer that I'm going to tell you is that yes, there's always a solution to everybody's problems. We just got to be clear what to understand, right? So first of all, understand the contract that you're signing, that it's a cash contract. Also understand all the contracts. There's no hidden fees. They'll be right there. Developer fees, connection fees, etc. Right? Because closing costs for a pre-construction are higher than a resale, right? A lot of times, it's a brand new building, so the developer fee is going to be there. There is going to be maybe a connection to the city, utilities. They're going to, all the HOAs now have a 10% reserve that they must have. So guess what? They're going to ask you up front, right, that you give your portion of that 10%. So your HOA first payment is going to be higher than normal, right? And so that's all factored in. It's very important that you know the amount, because when you go to closing, one of the things that you cannot finance, it's your closing costs, cash to close. You have to have that in your pocket. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. So basically, if you're in a building and you buy this pre-construction, if you're thinking and you're leveraging yourself and you don't have the money to do a cash closing, right? And you're planning on financing, you want to 6 months before it's done, start looking at your financing. Who could finance and get into that, because everybody's going to say, yeah, of course we're financing, but the reality is that they don't know until the condo questionnaire is out. I mean, there's going to be condo docs, that's one thing that regulates the building, but every lender is going to ask for condo questionnaires, and the condo questionnaires is going to dictate what kind of lending you're going to get. So for example, a lot of these buildings that are new, they have the Airbnb component. When there's an Airbnb component in the building, that automatically is going to become an investment property. Even if you live on it, yes, you could live in that property. That could be, but it cannot be your primary home, even if it is, but you cannot put it as a primary home. So you're looking now as an investment loan, right? So we have different type of loans, and the loans are going to vary in a different price range, right? A lot of times, a lot of these buildings, when you're getting, so now let's say you buy into an Airbnb building, you're looking at some kind of loan that is for an investment kind of loan. Some of these loans are tied to the income that the unit is going to produce. So it's hard to make projections, right? So when they do the appraisals and they try to see the projections, it's going to be very hard, because this is a new building. They don't know how it's going to behave on the market. So you might find yourself, the comparables from there. Usually the sales price, or usually there's equity. If you bought at the beginning of a building pre-construction, there's equity to be made. By the time you are closing, we have like 20-30% of equity, which is pretty good. That's what we've been seeing. But there's equity that you need to pull out. But at this point, you need to close, right? You cannot, before they will let you buy into a building, get the contract, and actually sell the unit before you close. Now you have to close the unit, and then you have to close it, and then you could sell the unit. But you still have to close it. That means that you have to go through the closing process. So it's very important that you get into some kind of communication with people. And there's people that actually specializes in pre-construction, and they're going to guide you, right? And then there's always a last minute, something called the hard money lending, which is somebody will lend you, it's a 2-year loan, right? That's like the highest interest rate. but you also only pay interest rate. You don't pay any principal. You don't pay, so your payment, your monthly payment, will be very low. And basically, it's like a bridge loan. It's to design so that you could, once, because every building when it comes into the market and it's brand new, there's perks. You're moving in, but there's also you need to wait for the building to stabilize or the building to, to go through that little, it might go up a little bit and then go down, stabilize ourselves. People are going to start to rent some units. You need to people moving in. So there's a little, usually takes about a year to 2 years to stabilize. This type of loan will help you get through, and then position yourself to get a better loan, right? So the question is, can you finance? Look, the question, it's a very tricky question. Yes, you could find financing, but you are signing a cash contract. And what the developer is saying that you have to buy, what happens is in a normal resale, right? Or like when you're buying a normal real estate house, when you're buying with a loan, there is a finance contingency, which pretty much says that if you, by no fault of the buyer, do not get the loan, you're allowed to get out of the deal and you don't lose your deposit. In this scenario, right, if you cannot close on the unit, you will lose your deposit. And this is like 40%. That's a lot of money. You will lose. You have to look at your contract. Some of them give some part of the money back. Some of them, you lose the money completely. Some of them, they'll hold it. And then when they sell the unit, you might get some of it back. But it's still a position that you don't want to be there, right? I've seen experiences, for example, I don't want to say, last unit, some people were, they were all excited to get their units. They comply with all the payments, and they were ready to close. They got fine, and they did not have the closing costs, the cash to close, right? Which, like I said, you have to look at those because they vary and they're not. I'm going to give you an example. This unit was $1.6 million. Closing cost was $110,000, which is kind of money, and the person didn't have it. And every day that you don't close on time, if you don't have an extension, usually developers, once they get the CTU, which means certificate of occupation, they will definitely send you a little note, letter saying that you have 10 days to close. You can ask for an extension. Maybe they'll try to move it to 30 days, right? But they don't have to, because you're not going to get financing in 10 days. Unless you do like a really hard money quick or you're really set, right? But then again, if you're talking to the right people, you will be able to navigate this and you will be able to solve the finance, but you will definitely have to close in the unit. So what I'm trying to say is that in a normal place, you have a financing contingency that allows the buyer, if by no fault of him does not get the loan, he's able to pull back out of the deal and not lose the deposit, etc. In this scenario, right, when you're buying a pre-construction, you will lose your unit, right? The developer will take over the unit, and I wouldn't say developer, the bank will take over the unit because the bank gave a loan for the developer to actually, build the property. So those units will be then taken back. So in conclusion, because this is a really quick live that I wanted to make to, add some value, and I'm trying to, promote my YouTube channel. By the way, I wrote a book which is about pre-construction. It's a little commercial. It's already, I'm uploading it up to Amazon, and I'll be launching it pretty soon, which is a book about the Miami boom, the pre-construction. So if you're into pre-construction, heads up, this book, it's really, it's a storytelling. It's a story with a lot of facts, a lot of how to navigate, because it is confusing to understand. The pre-construction world it's completely, it's I don't want to say that it's just different, and you need to understand it, because we have, we have different types of buildings. We have residence buildings, we have Airbnb, now we have condo hotels, now we have buildings that have a combination of these three components in one building. So all those things come into play when you're financing, when you're going to use the building. So there's things that you need to be aware of understanding. And I think all this boom of pre-construction, I know pre-construction has been around, right, for a long time, and it's been changing back and forth, but we're seeing a boom in Miami, and it's focusing on that. Having said that, if you got any value out of this conversation, please give me Please subscribe to the channel, give me some comments, and give them some likes. I see some people there. I want to wave to so I don't want to mess somebody's name, but I really appreciate you guys uh, participating on this live. So having said that, guys, have a great day. And I'm going to try to do a live every day, answer a simple question. And I was supposed to keep this short, right? Give me 3 minutes, but I guess it took longer than that. But having said that, guys,